My name is Juanita. I'm 61 years old, and I thought being invited to a family dinner at the finest French restaurant in Chicago meant my daughter-in-law was finally accepting me. I dressed carefully, arrived on time, brought nothing but hope for reconciliation. But I didn't know it was a trap. I didn't know that before the night ended, she would call security and demand they remove me like garbage. "Get this pauper away from the table," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. She had no idea I owned the company she worked for. She had no idea the pauper she mocked could fire her with a single phone call. Before we dive into the story, I'd love to know where you're watching from right now. If you've ever been underestimated or judged by someone who didn't know the whole picture, hit that like button. And subscribe because you're going to want to see how this ends. Let me tell you how I taught my daughter-in-law the most expensive lesson of her life. I've been a widow for 10 years now. My husband Frank died of a stroke on a cold January morning, and the world lost one of the kindest men I've ever known. But before he left, Frank and I built something together. We started Sterling Solutions from nothing, from our garage in a suburb of Chicago, just the two of us, and a dream. Frank handled operations, I handled strategy. We worked 18-hour days, ate ramen for dinner, slept 4 hours a night, and slowly, painfully, beautifully, we grew. Sterling Solutions is a management consulting firm. We advise companies on efficiency, restructuring, growth strategies. Today we employ 200 people. We have offices in 3 cities. Our annual revenue is in the tens of millions, and I own it all. I'm the CEO, though very few people know that. After Frank died, I made a decision to keep my identity private. I hired excellent managers, let them be the public face of the company. I attend board meetings under a pseudonym, make decisions from behind the scenes. Why? Because Frank taught me something important. True wealth is quiet, he used to say. The people who need everyone to know they're rich are usually the most insecure. So I live simply. I kept our small house in the suburbs, the one where we started everything. I drive a 12-year-old sedan that runs perfectly fine. I shop at regular stores, wear clothes that are comfortable rather than expensive. To anyone looking at me, I'm just an ordinary widow living on a pension. And that's exactly how I like it. I have one son. Xavier is 35, now works in IT for a tech company downtown. He's smart, capable, but he doesn't know about Sterling Solutions. I never told him. When Frank died, Xavier was 25, just starting his career. I made the decision then that he needed to build his own life, earn his own success, not coast on his mother's money. So I kept the company secret from him. He thinks I live off Frank's life insurance and Social Security. He thinks I'm getting by, nothing more. 2 years ago, Xavier met Sienna at a tech conference. She worked in marketing, ambitious and polished, always dressed like she'd stepped out of a magazine. They dated for a year, got married last spring. And from the first moment I met Sienna, she looked at me like I was dirt on her expensive shoes. Sienna comes from money. Her father, Gerald, owns a real estate development company. Her mother, Constance, spends her days shopping and lunching with other wealthy women. They live in a penthouse vacation in Europe and make sure everyone knows it. When Sienna brought Xavier home to meet them, they welcomed him warmly. When Xavier brought Sienna to meet me, she walked into my small house and I saw her nose wrinkle with distaste. The comments started immediately. "You should really update this place, Juanita. Have you considered moving somewhere more modern? That car in your driveway, is it safe to drive?" Every visit brought new suggestions, each one dripping with condescension. And Xavier, my sweet boy, who used to defend me against playground bullies, said nothing. He'd gotten weak, scared of disappointing his beautiful wife. Sienna works at Sterling Solutions. She doesn't know I own it. She was hired 3 years ago as a junior marketing coordinator, worked her way up to senior marketing manager. She's good at her job, I'll give her that. But she has no idea that every promotion she's received was approved by me, that I read every performance review that I watch, everything happening in my company. To her, I'm just poor Juanita Xavier's embarrassing mother, who can't afford nice things. A week ago, my phone rang. It was Sienna, her voice cool and professional. "Juanita," she said, "we're having a family dinner this Saturday. At Chez Laurent. My parents will be there. I'd like you to come." I was surprised. Sienna had never invited me to anything before. I thought maybe this was progress. Maybe she was trying to include me. "Of course," I said. "I'd love to." There was a pause, then she said, "Try to dress appropriately. It's a very nice restaurant." The way she said it made my skin prickle, but I ignored the warning signs. I prepared carefully for that dinner. I went to a department store and bought a new dress. Nothing extravagant, just a simple navy sheath that cost $150. I had my hair done at a salon. I wanted to look presentable, wanted Sienna to see that I could fit into her world, even if it wasn't mine. I should have known something was wrong when she emphasized dress appropriately. But I was too hopeful to see the trap being set. Saturday evening arrived. I drove my old car downtown to Chez Laurent, a French restaurant I'd heard about but never visited. The building was elegant, all glass and soft lighting, with a valet stand out front, where young men in uniforms waited to park cars. I drove past the valet and found a public parking lot 2 blocks away. No point paying $20 for someone to park my car when I had 2 working legs. I walked to the restaurant, my heels clicking on the sidewalk. Inside, everything was hushed and expensive. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings. The walls were covered in dark wood paneling. Waiters moved silently between tables where well-dressed people ate food I couldn't pronounce. The hostess greeted me with a professional smile. "Good evening, ma'am. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes," I said. "Under Sienna Torres." She checked her computer, nodded. "Right this way, please." She led me through the main dining room to a private section in the back, where larger tables accommodated groups. And there they were. Sienna sat at the center of a round table. Her dark hair swept into an elegant updo, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Next to her was Xavier, in a suit I'd never seen before. Across from them sat Gerald and Constance Sienna's parents, both looking exactly as wealthy as they were. I approached the table, my heart beating hopefully. "Hello, everyone," I said, smiling. Xavier stood up quickly, came around to hug me. "Hey, Mom," he said. "You made it." The hug was brief, almost nervous. Sienna looked me up and down, her eyes traveling from my shoes to my face. "That's what you chose to wear?" she asked. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried judgment like a weight. I looked down at my navy dress, suddenly feeling inadequate. "I thought it was appropriate," I said quietly. Constance, Sienna's mother, was watching me too. She wore a cream-colored suit with gold buttons and enough diamonds to fund a small country. She leaned toward Gerald and whispered something. He glanced at me and smirked. "Please sit," Sienna said, gesturing to a chair at the far end of the table. I walked around and sat where she indicated, as far from the center as possible. Gerald and Constance sat in the middle like royalty. Sienna and Xavier flanked them. I was relegated to the edge, separated, isolated. Already I felt like an outsider at my own son's family dinner. Conversation began without me. Gerald launched into a story about his latest real estate development, a luxury condo building on the lakefront. $50 million project, he said proudly. "We broke ground last month." Constance added details about the imported Italian marble they'd chosen for the lobbies, the smart home technology in every unit. Sienna listened with rapt attention, occasionally offering comments about marketing strategies for high-end properties. I sat quietly, trying to find an opening to join the conversation. But every time I opened my mouth, someone else started talking. It was like I wasn't there. When the waiter came to take drink orders, Gerald ordered a bottle of wine without asking anyone's preference. When it arrived, he poured for everyone except me. "Oh," he said, noticing. "Do you drink wine, Juanita?" Before I could answer, Constance laughed. "She probably prefers something less expensive. Dear? Beer, perhaps?" The comment stung, but I kept my face neutral. "Water is fine, thank you," I said. The waiter poured me water and moved on. Xavier sat there looking uncomfortable, but saying nothing. Not defending me, not correcting his mother-in-law's rudeness. Just sitting there like a coward. The menus arrived, heavy leather folders with gold embossing. I opened mine and saw immediately why Sienna had chosen this place. Every dish was priced in the triple digits. Appetizers started at $40. Main courses ranged from $80 to $200. This wasn't just an expensive restaurant. This was obscene. And I realized, looking at Sienna's smug face, that this was part of the plan. She'd brought me here to humiliate me, to watch me squirm over prices she thought I couldn't afford. Juanita, Sienna said loudly, drawing everyone's attention. "Don't worry if you can't afford anything here. We'll cover your meal. It's our treat." She said it like she was being generous, like she was doing charity work. Gerald nodded magnanimously. "Yes, of course. We understand times are tough for some people." Constance added, "We're happy to help those less fortunate." I looked at Xavier, waiting for him to say something to tell them to stop. But he just studied his menu, his face red with embarrassment, but his mouth firmly shut. I felt anger rising in my chest, but I pushed it down. Not yet. Thank you, I said evenly, but I can manage. I scanned the menu and ordered a modest entree. The salmon, one of the cheaper options at $85. Nothing that would give them more ammunition. The appetizers arrived artfully arranged on white plates. Gerald and Constance ate with exaggerated refinement, commenting on every bite. This foie gras is exceptional, Gerald announced. You can taste the quality. Constance agreed. Absolutely. You know, we had something similar in Paris last year. At that little bistro near the Louvre. Remember, darling? They launched into a story about their European vacation, making sure to mention every expensive hotel, every Michelin-starred restaurant, every designer boutique they'd visited. Sienna joined in eagerly. She talked about her promotion at Sterling Solutions, how her supervisor had called her indispensable, how she was being considered for director-level positions. I sat quietly eating my scallops, listening to her exaggerate her accomplishments. I knew the truth. Sienna was competent, but hardly indispensable. Her promotion had come because she'd met her metrics, nothing more. But I said nothing. Let her boast. Let her feel important. Then Sienna turned her attention to me. So, Juanita, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. How are things with you, still in that same little house? I nodded. Yes, I'm very comfortable there. She smiled like a shark. Don't you find it lonely, all by yourself in that old place? Maybe you should think about downsizing. A retirement community might be more suitable. They're quite affordable these days. The word affordable was a knife. She was calling me poor, reminding everyone at the table that I didn't belong in their world of wealth and excess. Constance picked up the thread. Oh yes, a retirement community would be perfect for you, Juanita. They have activities, meals included. You wouldn't have to worry about expenses. Gerald nodded. We could help you look into options if you'd like. There are some very economical choices. Economical. Affordable. Every word was designed to remind me of my supposed poverty, to put me in my place. I looked at Xavier silently, begging him to intervene. He finally spoke, his voice weak. Mom's fine, he said. She manages. That was it. She manages. Not she's independent, not leave her alone. Just the bare minimum defense before he retreated back into silence. The main courses arrived. My salmon was perfectly cooked, but I barely tasted it. I was too focused on controlling my anger, on maintaining my composure, while these people tore me apart with smiles on their faces. Constance continued, You know, Juanita, if you ever need financial help, please don't hesitate to ask. We're family now. We understand how difficult it must be for a widow living on a fixed income. A fixed income. She'd painted me as someone surviving on scraps, barely making ends meet. Gerald chimed in. Yes, Xavier told us about your situation. The small house, the old car. It can't be easy. Xavier had told them. My own son had given them ammunition to use against me. had shared details of my life so they could weaponize it. I felt a deep sense of betrayal, but still, I kept quiet. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Sienna was warming to her theme. Honestly, Juanita, I don't know how you do it. Living so frugally, counting every penny. It must be exhausting. I live comfortably, I said, my voice harder than before. Sienna laughed. Sure, if you call that comfortable. But really, there's no shame in accepting help. We could set up a small allowance for you if you need it. Make things easier. An allowance, like I was a child, like I needed their charity to survive. I set down my fork, looked directly at Sienna. I don't need an allowance, I said clearly. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself. She shrugged. If you say so. But pride can be expensive. Sometimes it's better to accept reality. The implication was clear. I was too proud to admit I was poor, too stubborn to accept their generous offer to treat me like a burden they'd graciously shoulder. Dessert was ordered: chocolate soufflé, crème brûlée, delicate pastries that cost $20 each. Gerald decided to celebrate Sienna's success and ordered a bottle of champagne. The waiter brought it out with ceremony, popped the cork, poured it into crystal flutes. Gerald raised his glass. To Sienna, he announced, for her incredible achievements, and to Xavier for marrying up. Marrying up. The phrase hung in the air like poison. It meant Xavier had married above. His station had caught someone better than what he deserved. Better than where he came from. Better than me. Everyone laughed and clinked glasses. Everyone except me. I sat there, my champagne untouched, watching this performance of cruelty disguised as celebration. Constance noticed I hadn't joined the toast. Juanita, you're not drinking. This champagne is $300 a bottle. You really should try it. It's a rare treat for someone like you. For someone like me. The mask was slipping now. They weren't even pretending to be kind anymore. I'm not in a celebratory mood, I said quietly. My voice was cold. Sienna's eyes narrowed. What's wrong with you? She demanded. We invited you to a lovely dinner at an expensive restaurant, and you're sitting there being ungrateful. The nerve, the sheer audacity. They invite me to humiliate me, and I'm supposed to be grateful. I looked at her. This woman who married my son and immediately started treating his mother like trash. I said nothing, but something in my expression must have bothered her, because she set down her glass and leaned forward. You know what, Juanita, she said, her voice getting louder. I've been patient with you. We all have. But you need to understand something. You're not part of our world. Look around. Look at this restaurant, these people. You don't belong in places like this. I felt my face getting hot. Nearby tables were starting to notice. Sienna didn't care. She was on a roll now, enjoying herself. Look at you, she continued. That cheap dress you're wearing, those shoes that have seen better days. You stick out like a sore thumb. You're embarrassing. Gerald and Constance were nodding along, enjoying the show. Xavier was staring at his plate, his face crimson, but his mouth closed. Sienna kept going. Xavier married me because I can give him the life you never could. Success, status, opportunities. You're just a reminder of where he came from. And honestly, it's humiliating having you around." Each word was a slap. I felt tears threatening, but I refused to let them fall. I stood up slowly, reaching for my purse. "I think I should leave," I said. My voice shook despite my best efforts. Sienna laughed. "Oh, running away. How typical. Can't handle the truth." I stood there, purse in hand, and something shifted inside me. No, I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to let them win this easily. I sat back down, placed my purse in my lap, and looked Sienna straight in the eye. "I'm not leaving," I said firmly. Sienna looked surprised. "Fine," she snapped. "Then sit there and be quiet. This is our celebration, not yours. Don't ruin it with your poverty and your self-pity." I sat there, hands folded, watching her preen and gloat. She had no idea what was coming. None of them did. I watched and waited, letting them dig their hole deeper. The meal was winding down. The waiter brought the check, presenting it on a small silver tray. Gerald picked it up, glanced at the total, and whistled. $2,100, he said. "Quite the evening." He looked at Sienna. "Should we split this?" Sienna glanced at me. "Well, I don't think Juanita can contribute much. Maybe we should just cover it." I opened my purse. "I can pay my share," I said. I pulled out my wallet, removed $200 in cash. $20 bills, crisp and new. I'd stopped at the ATM that morning, wanting to have cash on hand. I set the money on the table. Sienna's eyes locked onto the cash, and I saw something calculating flash across her face. "Wait," she said slowly. "Where did you get that money?" I looked at her, confused. "What do you mean? It's my money." Sienna's voice got louder. "That's a lot of cash for someone who's supposedly struggling to make ends meet. Where did it come from? Did you steal it?" The accusation hit me like a bucket of ice water. "What? No. This is my money." I withdrew it from my bank. Sienna stood up her chair, scraping loudly against the floor. "I don't believe you," she said. "Xavier told me you're barely getting by. There's no way you have $200 just lying around. You must have stolen it." Heads were turning now, other diners looking over to see what the commotion was about. Gerald supported his daughter. "She has a point," he said. "That does seem suspicious." Constance nodded vigorously. "We should call the police. This is theft." Xavier finally found his voice. "Sienna, stop it. That's Mom's money. She didn't steal anything." But his protest was weak, and Sienna ignored him completely. She raised her hand, snapping her fingers to get the manager's attention. A tall man in a suit hurried over. "Yes, ma'am, is there a problem?" Sienna pointed at me dramatically. "This woman has stolen money. I want her removed from this restaurant immediately." The manager looked at me, then at the cash on the table, clearly confused. "Ma'am," he said to me, "is this true?" "No," I said, my voice shaking with rage and humiliation. "This is my money. I haven't stolen anything." Sienna's face was triumphant. She's lying. Look at her. Look at how she's dressed. Does she look like someone who has money? She's a thief, and I want her out of here now. The manager hesitated. This is a serious accusation, he said carefully. Perhaps we should. Call security. Sienna interrupted. Get this pauper away from the table. She doesn't belong here, pauper. The word echoed through the restaurant. Conversation stopped. Everyone was staring now. The manager, looking deeply uncomfortable, gestured to two security guards stationed near the entrance. They started walking toward our table. I looked around. Dozens of eyes on me, whispering, judging. I looked at Gerald and Constance, who were watching with smug satisfaction. I looked at Xavier, who sat frozen, unable or unwilling to defend his own mother. And I looked at Sienna, who stood there with her arms crossed, her face glowing with victory. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd successfully humiliated me, put me in my place, proven once and for all that I didn't belong in her world. The security guards reached our table. Ma'am, one of them said to me, "We need you to come with us." He reached for my arm, and that's when I smiled. A slow, cold smile that made Sienna's triumphant expression falter slightly, because she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life, and she didn't even know it yet. "One moment, please," I said to the security guards. They paused, uncertain. I turned to the manager, who was hovering nearby, looking stressed. "What's your name?" I asked him. "David, ma'am," he replied. "David," I said calmly. "Do you know who owns Chez Laurent?" He blinked, confused by the question. "Yes," he said. "It's part of the Belmont Restaurant Group." "And do you know who owns the Belmont Restaurant Group?" David shook his head. "I believe it's a private investment firm," he said uncertainly. "Sterling Solutions," I said clearly. "My company." Complete silence fell over our section of the restaurant. David stared at me. I'm sorry what I reached into my purse and pulled out a business card. I always carried a few, even though I rarely used them. I handed it to David. "Juanita Rivera," I said, "CEO of Sterling Solutions. We acquired Belmont Restaurant Group 3 years ago. I'm the owner of this restaurant, and about 15 others." David took the card with trembling fingers. He looked at it, looked at me, looked at the card again. His face went white. Sienna was shaking her head. "That's ridiculous," she said. But her voice had lost some of its confidence. "She's lying. You can't possibly believe her." I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and dialed. Marcus Chen, my CFO, answered on the second ring. "Juanita," he said. "Everything right?" "Marcus," I said. "I'm at Chez Laurent. Could you please confirm my identity to the manager here? His name is David." "Of course," Marcus said immediately. "Put him on." I handed my phone to David. The manager pressed it to his ear, listened for a moment, and his face went from white to gray. "Yes, Mr. Chen," he said. "Yes, I understand. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. My sincere apologies, Ms. Rivera." He handed my phone back like it was made of glass. I'm extremely sorry, Ms. Rivera. David said, his voice shaking. If I'd known. You couldn't have known, I said. I keep a low profile. But now you do know. And I'd appreciate it if you'd tell your security guards to step back. They immediately moved away, looking embarrassed. David turned to Sienna. Ma'am, I'm afraid there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Sienna was shaking her head, her perfect makeup starting to crack as panic set in. This is insane, she said. She's just a poor widow. I've met her house. I've seen her car. This is some kind of trick. I turned to face her fully. No, Sienna, I said. I'm the CEO of Sterling Solutions, the company where you work. I built it with my late husband Frank over 20 years ago. We started in our garage and grew it into a multi-million-dollar operation. I own it completely. Sienna's mouth opened and closed. Her face was losing color. That's impossible, she whispered. The CEO is who I asked. Have you ever met the CEO? Have you ever seen their face? Sienna shook her head mutely. Exactly, I said. I prefer to keep my identity private. I hire excellent managers to handle day-to-day operations. But every major decision goes through me. Every hire, every promotion, every termination. I watched understanding dawn on her face. Every promotion I repeated, including yours. I approved your advancement to senior marketing manager. I read your performance reviews. I know exactly how you've performed. You're competent, Sienna, but you're far from indispensable. Her face was now completely drained of color. Gerald and Constance sat frozen. Their earlier smugness evaporated. Xavier was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. You called me a pauper, I said to Sienna. My voice was quiet, but carried through the silent restaurant. You tried to have me arrested for theft. You humiliated me in front of my own son, in front of all these people. You judged me based on my clothes, my car, my house. You assumed poverty meant worthlessness. Sienna's hands were shaking. Ms. Rivera, she started. I'm so sorry. I didn't. You didn't know I finished for her. No, you didn't, and that's exactly the problem. I turned to David. Please prepare a private room, I said. I need to make some calls. Right away, Ms. Rivera, he said, practically bowing. I looked back at Sienna. Tomorrow morning, you'll receive notification of your transfer. You're being moved to facilities management. Specifically, you'll be working in our corporate cafeteria. Washing dishes. Sienna gasped. You can't do that. I own the company. I said simply, I can do whatever I want. Your new position starts Monday morning, 6 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. I stood up, placed $300 bills on the table. That should cover my portion of the meal and a generous tip for our waiter, I said to David. Keep the change. I picked up my purse, looked one last time at Sienna's devastated face, at Gerald and Constance, sitting in shocked silence at Xavier, who couldn't meet my eyes. I walked out of Chez Laurent with my head high, leaving behind a family who just learned that appearances can be very, very deceiving. Monday morning, I arrived at Sterling Solutions headquarters at 7 a.m. I'd spent Sunday making calls, confirming arrangements, ensuring everything was in place. I went straight to my office, the one that few people knew belonged to the CEO. It was on the top floor, modest and comfortable, with windows overlooking Chicago. I made coffee, settled at my desk, and waited. At 8 a.m., my head of HR called. "It's done," she said. "Sienna Torres has been notified of her transfer. She's reporting to facilities management this morning." "How did she take it?" I asked. She cried, my HR director said, asked if there was any way to reverse the decision. I told her no. The order came from the CEO and was final. "Good," I said. "Thank you." I hung up and turned to my computer, pulling up the security camera feed from the corporate cafeteria. At 8:30, I watched Sienna walk into the kitchen area. She wore jeans and a t-shirt instead of her usual designer outfits. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked small and defeated. The facilities manager, a no-nonsense woman named Brenda, showed her to the industrial dishwasher, explained the process. Sienna stood there staring at the machine like it was a creature from another planet. I watched her put on rubber gloves, start loading dirty dishes from the morning breakfast service. Her movements were clumsy, uncertain. A plate slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. She jumped, then bent to clean it up, her face crumpling. I felt a twinge of something. Not quite regret, not quite satisfaction. Just a sense of completion. She'd learned her lesson. Whether she'd actually change was up to her. Around noon, I left my office and walked through the building. I wanted to see how the company was running, wanted to be present even if most employees didn't know who I was. I took the elevator down to the cafeteria level. The lunch rush was in full swing, employees lining up with trays, chatting and laughing. I got in line, picked up a sandwich and a coffee. As I paid, I glanced toward the kitchen. Through the window, I could see Sienna at the sink, scrubbing a large pot. Her face was red, her shirt splattered with water and food. She looked up and our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I nodded once, turned away, and left. I didn't need to say anything. The message was clear. This is what happens when you judge people by appearances. This is what happens when cruelty masquerades as superiority. That evening, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Xavier standing on my porch, his eyes red and swollen. He'd been crying. "Mom," he said, "can I come in?" I stepped aside, let him enter. We sat in my small living room, the one Sienna had mocked so many times. For a long moment, Xavier just sat there, his head in his hands. Finally, he looked up at me. "I'm so sorry," he said. His voice broke. "I'm so sorry for everything. For not defending you. For telling Sienna about your house and car. For sitting there like a coward while they tore you apart. I was weak. I was wrong. I was a terrible son." Tears were streaming down his face. "Can you ever forgive me?" I looked at my boy, my only child, and I felt my anger soften slightly. "Xavier," I said gently, "I can forgive you, but forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. You let your wife humiliate me because you were afraid of her." "I know," he whispered. "I know." You need to find your spine, I said firmly. You need to decide what kind of man you want to be. The kind who stands up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Or the kind who hides and hopes the storm passes. I want to be better, he said. I want to make this right. Then start now, I told him. What's done is done. But moving forward, I need to know you'll have my back, that you'll defend me, that you won't let anyone treat your mother like garbage ever again. I will, he promised. I swear, Mom, I will. We talked for another hour. Xavier told me about his marriage, about how Sienna had changed after the wedding, become more demanding and critical, how he'd felt trapped between his mother and his wife and chosen wrong. I listened without judgment. He was learning a hard lesson, and I wouldn't make it harder. When he left, he hugged me tight. I love you, Mom, he said. I love you too, baby, I replied. And I always will. The weeks that followed brought change. Sienna worked in the cafeteria for a month. Every day, she showed up at 6 a.m., washed dishes, until 2 p.m., went home exhausted. I heard reports from Brenda that she was quiet, didn't complain, did her work. Whether she was truly learning humility or just biding her time, I couldn't say. After a month, I called her into my office. She sat across from me, her designer confidence completely gone. She looked tired and smaller somehow. Sienna, I said, you've completed your month in facilities management. I'm offering you a choice. You can return to marketing, but at the entry-level position. Starting salary, starting responsibilities. Or you can leave Sterling Solutions with a neutral reference. What do you choose? She looked at me, and for the first time I saw something real in her eyes. Regret, maybe, or at least understanding. I'd like to stay, she said quietly. If you'll have me. I want to learn. I want to be better. I nodded. Then you'll start, Monday, in the junior marketing coordinator position. You'll report to the person who now has your old job. You'll work your way back up if you can. But, Sienna, she looked up. If I ever hear of you treating anyone with the disrespect you showed me, you're done. No second chances. I understand, she said. Thank you. I don't know if Sienna truly changed. Time would tell. But she stayed at Sterling. Solutions worked hard, kept her head down. She and Xavier stayed married too, though I heard their relationship was rocky. Xavier started standing up to her, more insisting on treating me with respect. Slowly, painfully, we rebuilt some kind of family dynamic. As for me, I learned something too. For years, I'd hidden my success, thinking humility meant invisibility. But there's a difference between being humble and being a doormat. I didn't need to flaunt my wealth. But I also didn't need to accept mistreatment. I taught Sienna that respect isn't optional, it's essential. And I reminded myself that I never have to tolerate disrespect, no matter who it comes from. True power isn't in flaunting wealth or status. It's in knowing your worth and demanding to be treated accordingly. I don't need people to know I'm rich, but I do need them to treat me with basic human dignity. And anyone who can't do that well, they can wash dishes and think about their choices. So let me ask you, Have you ever been underestimated by someone who had no idea who they were dealing with? Have you ever had to put someone in their place who thought they were better than you? Drop a comment below and tell me your story. I'd love to hear it. And if this story resonated with you, if you felt that satisfaction when Sienna got what she deserved, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about standing up for yourself and knowing your worth. Share this with anyone who needs a reminder that they should never judge a book by its cover. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you deserve respect, no matter what you wear, what you drive, or where you live. Your worth isn't determined by your appearance. It's determined by your character, your strength, and your refusal to accept less than you deserve. Take care of yourselves, stand tall, and never let anyone make you feel small.